Okay, my friends. So I will change the way we present the images. So it's going to be like this. So this is our seminar about Byung-Chul Han's latest work called The Crisis of Narration, which is a very complex subject and a very new one too. Imagine to be talking about a narration crisis at the moment we are living. It's very difficult to do philosophy at the time of the events, you know? So to look at things happening and trying to describe them, to describe the movement, things in movement are much harder to be described than when you look at the past, for example, but the past is always moving too. Well, but I think it's a great effort of Byung-Chul Han to bring this into our conversation, bring it into our debate, which is the crisis of narration, especially in the sense that he's taking his interpretation from. That is, we are in a crisis of narration, much motivated by the overload of data, of images, of videos, of, this overload of data. And each of the students from the Rising Sun took an interpretative path and brought this into our conversation. So today, we conclude our studies about the crisis of narration, and this is our seminar. I organized the texts more or less inside of a context and a style. So students that were very pragmatic and students that were very creative. So the pragmatic and the creative, I separated in two big blocks. But inside the big blocks, there are also other separations, so that the texts somehow communicate among themselves. I think we will not have much time for a debate, for questions, but in the end, we may open for a last consideration from the students, those that feel like they would like to bring some other information or consideration on the presentation of the colleagues. We may have, but not much time, because today is also a very auspicious day, because it's well, today, after this event, we also have another event, and I would like to invite you. Unfortunately, many people are not in Goiânia, but for those that are, I would like to invite you to this.
6h39, se você gosta da arte da pintura, então presta atenção que amanhã vai ter exposição entre penas e pinturas, uma celebração de aves. Olha aí que lindo, gente! Essa exposição traz uma seleção de pinturas e outras obras inspiradas em aves, mostrando a incrível variedade dessas criaturas com asas e a influência delas na arte. A exposição entre penas e pinturas começa às 9 da manhã no Clube da Caixa, que fica na Avenida T1, esquina com a T8, no setor Bueno.
This is a project from my father. My father started taking pictures of birds. Initially, my father loved to keep birds on a cage. So for many years, we had birds in our house. And my father came from a tradition of raising birds. And, well, fortunately, he gave up this terrible habit and transformed that into a beautiful thing that is painting them. I think it's better to have a bird on a canvas than inside of a cage. Well, saying that, we can get to our seminar. We are here, Byung-Chul Han, the crisis of narration. I will organize the presentation like this. Is it totally visible? Is all right for everyone? Yeah. So you're gonna see sometimes I will come back to the main room, maybe just to give some little short commentary, and then we continue, or we go student by student in the order that is presented. So, well, who is going to open our seminar is Marcos Paulo. So Marcos, welcome and bring it, man.
Thank you. Minhoca. It is night, 9 p.m. I just had finished my class about the crisis of narration. So I go to my room, and what I see is my 2.5-year-old child completely mesmerized, watching something on YouTube. What it's about? Unliteracy animation teaching the letter M through the figure of a minhoca. When the boy notices my presence, he turns his head to my side and say, "Daddy, minhota! Look, Daddy, minhota!" I answer, "Cool, it's a minhoca." So I look to the eyes of Leon, still mute, bulging eyes, open my mouth with a smile, expressing how awesome the idea that just had happened. So I break the silence, talking with all the enthusiasm that the idea deserved. "Let's find a minhoca!" Immediately and decisively, the boy closes the screen of the laptop, gets out of the bed and say, "Let's find minhota!" Marching in funny steps, I continued the adventure. We went to a flower bed, but it was too dark. So we go back and get a little flashlight toy that works like any other. Back to the flower bed, I take a soup spoon and start digging, and my son holding the little flashlight. But who said we found a minhoca? Imagine a dry, full of roots, sandy soil. If there's a worm there, the one who will find a minhoca will be a man with a hoe. So I turn to Leon, the boy looking at me with that excitement of someone who wants to see something new in real life. How could I deprive my son of knowing what it's like to pull a minhoca out of the ground? Settle for a digital minhoca? Never. Already deluded with finding a minhoca there, I turn around and say, "Leon, there won't be any minhoca here. Shall we look elsewhere?" "Salute, swear," he answered. We went around the condominium, turning over all the flower beds we found. We saw beetles, ants, moths, but no minhocas. But we raced, threw flowers into the air, played jumping, watched the birds flying and the kittens hiding through a gap in the door into the dark warehouse. All these without ever stopping looking for minhocas. When it was too late, I turned to Leon and said, "Son, it looks like we are going to have to find the minhoca another day." He was a little sad, but understood. We sat on a tiled floor in an open air area to rest, and as I put my hand on the pavement, guess what? I feel something mushy and cold, and I get scared. I jump back. Leon jumps even higher, scared by my reaction. As I turn to look at what it is, a huge worm jumping as if it was giving wish splash because it too was scared by our presence. I turn to Leon and he starts laughing loud and ha 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 ha. And so I do. I ha 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 minhoca, minhota. And the worm jumped and jumped and we both sang every tune. We saw something magical. Something unthinkable happened. The world was flooded with a radiant aura. Life is full of these magics.
Thank you so much, man, for this presentation, this story. It sounds like a child's book that could emerge from this, these short narratives. They can transform into something fantastic. So what I
Yes,
think we
thank you.
saw here from Marcus is looking at the crisis of narration in a different approach, and like escaping from the crisis of narration and bringing narrative to these little magical events that happen all the time. Plínio Brito, Stimul, you can go, my brother.
Stimuli: How to Protect Against the Flood of It. The Crise of Narration by Byung-Chul Han has a lot of interesting insights, but for me, what really caught my attention was in the chapter From Shocks to Likes, that the author used Freud's ideas about the stimuli to analyze our current day life. The author said, the main function of consciousness is to protect us against stimuli. For Freud, for a living organism, protection against stimuli is almost more important than the reception of stimuli. The protective shield is equipped with its own store of energy, and must above all strive to preserve the special forms of conservation of energy operating in it against the effects of the excessive energy at work in the external world effects that tend to toward an equalization of potential and hence toward destruction. For the author, in the modern age, the shock aspect of the individual impressions has become so intensified that our consciousness is forced to be permanently active as a shield against stimuli. The author also says, it may be true that the increasing sensory overload in modernity is experienced as a shock, but over time, the psyche apparatus gets used to the increased stimuli and perception becomes accordingly dulled. But how to be protected against the flood of stimuli that we have these days? We receive the impact of many kinds of stimuli during our ordinary days. I'm talking not only about advertisement, but all kinds of stimuli like short videos, photo memories, social media, WhatsApp messages, all kinds of news. I'm really worried, especially for the boys and girls of young age living this time. My main concern is how this flood of stimuli will affect them, especially because the inefficiency of their shields. Following Freud's idea, our shield against stimuli is our conscious. But for children, conscious about the damage that stimuli can cause is not a concern. For me, the protection against stimuli for children have to be provided by parents. The strategy that apparently works to keep the attention of the children away from the flood of information, especially in cell phone, is dedicate some time to stimulate the practice of sport and some kind of plays like puzzles or jogos de tabuleiro. This weekend, I have a happy surprise. My oldest son, now with 8 years old, told me after riding a bike for about 30 minutes, this is much better than watch videos.
Yeah, you see what I meant when I said that I try to join the themes, and I think Marcus' text and Plinius' text somehow they dialogue, in the same sense of protect against the flood, you know, Marcos playing with the minhoca and Plínio playing with, you know, jogos de tabuleiro, you know, board games. Narrate, Cecilia, my student. Yes, it's your turn, my friend. Bring it.
Okay, it's narration as healing. Okay, I will open the presentation with a saying from the author Lisa Weinert from the book The Narrative Healing. Our stories have a healing purpose and are meant to be shared. I have been a teacher for more than 20 years. I had all kinds of students, elderly, kids, teen, adults. I have taught privately and at different schools. I have always tried to have a connection with the students apart from just teaching. I have listened all kinds of stories from my students. However, there was one situation particularly which really touched me, and I felt the power of narrative. I was teaching a group of 9 to 10-year-old children. There were 12 kids in that group who I was not familiar with, but there was a boy who I had learned through the other teachers that had been through some problems of aggressiveness the year before. On the second class, when we were gathered working on a project, the boy had a fight with a girl because she had taken the place where he was sitting. He left the room and angry slammed the door on his way out. I immediately went after the student and I saw him sitting in another room alone. I asked what had happened and he started to get a little aggressive. Then I told him in a firm way to lower his voice. Then I sat by his side and he said, crying, "Nobody understands my pain." And I said, "What's the problem?" Although he didn't want to say, I promised him that it would be our secret. Then he said, "My parents are divorcing and I can't get over it. I can't get over it and nobody understands." And I said, "I do, because I lost my father when I was 9. My father died when I was 9. He immediately raised his head, which he had kept lower during the conversation, looked at me, wide eyes opened, and said, "My age?" I said, "Yes, your age. But I could never see my father again." I'm not saying that my pain is worse than yours. I'm just telling you that I understand what you are feeling and respect it. You will always find someone who is willing to listen to your story and help you. You just have to speak out. I left the room. After 5 minutes, he went back to the room and gathered with the other students. After that, his behavior changed, and every class he asked me, "Can I sit by your side?" And of course I say, yes. According to the philosopher Byung, we are experiencing a serious crisis which gave rise to his book, The Crise of Narratives. The excess of information we have access to, together with social network and aggressive marketing, gives us a false sense of connection with the world, leading us to isolation. Children and teenagers are burdened with responsibilities established by their parents, leaving them no time to develop their creativity or reflection process. Still in his book, he states that narrative creates community cohesion that is extremely important for us to create memories, especially affective ones, that give meanings to our history. He also emphasizes that narration presupposes deep listening and attention. Just by narrating parts of our story, it is possible to find new meanings, what can connect us with the listener through similarity of the experience. So, when we learn to listen carefully to others, we realize that narrative has the power of healing, just like what happened to my student after half an hour of a simple conversation.
That's so beautiful, huh? Yes.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing your experience. Is very touching, Cecilia, because we all feel that way somehow. Yeah, we all long for some kind of understanding. And yes, narrative has the power of healing, especially the problems created by culture, you know.
Yes.
Yes, fantastic. Well, the next one is Santiago. Santiago, go, my boy.
Meaningless data. "24 Hours in Photos," created by Eric Castles, is an installation created to highlight the impact of images on our culture, as well as the visual abundance of content in the digital age. Eric is a contemporary artist who is inspired by photos taken by amateurs to create his artistic manifestations. In his installation, 24 Hours in Photos, he places 9,500,000 photos in a church, creating a feeling of suffocation due to the alarming number of photos. Several interpretations can be taken from his work, since it is a semi-close perspective, and one of them is that digital media is almost demanding that we capture our moments on social networks, which make us not enjoy our relationships with the people we love. Byung-Chul Han conveys his pessimistic view of new generations in the book The Crise da Narração. His work emphasizes how our society is having struggles to construct narratives, stories, and even communicating. I say that his view is pessimistic because he refers to current society as beings who are thirsty for propaganda and completely ignorant due to their inability to retain any type of information, as they are too busy looking at high dopamine videos that contain no useful information at all. What he says is not a lie. However, seeing all people who were born in an era where everything is easily accessible as beings without history is an exaggeration. An important concept created by Byung is the roaring story selling that is transforming his pessimism into reality. This term revolves around commercializing all types of narratives, stories, and even language itself, bearing in mind that this happens from the moment that storytelling becomes something banal. Transforming the narrative into something casual through its capitalization, such as short videos on social platforms, means that in the end nothing is narrated, as you cannot tell anything if you only live in that present moment. In a way, living a life where you live completely in the moment creates a certain dehumanization, as our ability to narrate becomes fragile. Storytelling is not possible without a link or relationship between the internal and the external perspective. So when a person lives extremely worried about the present, they leave aside their perspective and limit their surplus of vision to just the casuality that life can give. Denying narrative is the same thing as giving away everything that makes you human. This immediacy of human beings can be seen in the amount of photos and videos that people take on social media instead of enjoying the moment. They often end up leaving the material world aside to focus on the virtual world and photograph those moments, not in an attempt to save memories, but to show strangers how good their lives and are how good their lives are and how their persona created on social media is enjoying life. The astounding installation by our castles somehow captures the same feeling that is behind Han's critique. It is in the excess of information turned into pictures and videos that their meanings are dissolving into a huge mountain of data.
Yes, it's very interesting, Santiago, because we had this class about installations, and you could bring the link together and the pile of photos from Eric Castles and Byung-Chul Han. I think they really communicate. Very nice. André Prado Roriz, game over.
Game over. After reading The Crisis of Narration by Byung-Chul Han, I found myself reflecting deeply on the symptoms of modern life that we see in our society today. And when I say modern life, I mean post-internet life. And as someone born in the middle 80s and who spent my entire childhood without the internet, I believe I have a place of speech to analyze the disruption that this technology brings. Byung-Chul Han alerts us to the fact that the informatization of society accelerates its denarrativization. The excess of information that bombards us from the flat screen in our pockets, our homes, public space, and our work is consuming a lot of our time and energy. Our experiences are losing meaning. Our capacity for immersion in a ludic atmosphere is dissolving, and we are losing the power to captivate, to communicate with emotions, to tell stories that capture the attention of others, and to impress ourselves with narrations of simple events from the past. With the power of having all the information we need on a supercomputer inside our pocket, we don't need to remember anything, coupled with the unimaginable amount of information being generated all the time, we simply are not able to digest our time. Assuming that the more things we own, the greater our responsibilities, and children nowadays have all the music, films, books, tips, photos, and stories available instantly and often for free, we can diagnose a generation with an ever-growing giant pressure on their shoulders. The increasing level of anxiety, depression, dissatisfaction, and attention deficit that we see in the new generation are perhaps symptoms of this burden. Are we producing new Beethovens, Shakespeare, Plato's, Marx, and Picasso's? Are we creating disruptive new economic models and political agreements to deal with our unique global issues? Why does communication technology bring silence? I try to materialize my reflection in this text below. I see the lips not making any sound, heads down to the phone. Communication tech brought silence. Specialization hacked the desire. Feel the burden of digesting the time. Where is your past? I lost my stories. Thirsty for fragment. Text without sentiment. Picture of a picture. Sound that doesn't sound. Sunshine with no shine. Core hardcore. Choose the speed, pleasure, or discipline. tedium, adrenaline, memory doesn't exist, cannot find the key, perhaps no exit to tech labyrinth. I feel you are losing your mind. Time to restart. Let's play again or change the game.
That's fantastic, man. You know, Andre, it's the first time a student gives me a poem as a homework, which is, I think, it's a beautiful solution, you know, for a problem. And I would like to read that poem many times. And I have to tell you, people, that André was trying to transform this poem into a song using an artificial intelligence. So he would connect all these things, but it didn't work very well initially. Yeah? But the poem
Yeah,
is
it was
fantastic. Yeah, the poem is fantastic. Yes, André. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you, Brito. Thank you.
The narrative crisis, and now you see that that we left the children, and now we entered an art critique, music critique, and now architecture critique with Maria. So you see there are so many different approaches to the problem. Huh? You can go, Maria, please.
Architecture is one of the oldest forms of art there is. As soon as human beings start to settle down, the first reaction of all societies is to build a settling place, a house. As settling becomes more common and more houses are built, the house starts to take the image of the people, its shape, decoration, adornation, color, placing, and usage, reflecting what is valued and what is available for the people it's built to serve. A house is a special work of art, as the soul put into it is not only by the artist, but also by the ones who live there, the ones who are able to make a house into a home. According to contemporary philosopher Byung-Chul Han, we are currently going through a narration crisis. The cluttering of short-lived information taking the place that once belonged to narrative that held meaning and required interpretation. Stories no longer need to make you think. They need to sell as quickly as possible to as many possible consumers as possible. The important human relationships with each other and the environment being strained in favor of story selling. The culture being set aside for whatever is trending. The humanity being traded for as many likes as possible. Art is a reflection of the artist. An artist is a person too who is a reflection of their societal context and overall culture, and architects are immune to that. So, in a society where there is too much information but no valuable content, the way the structures are built will also reflect that. In a world where people's thoughts are boxy, showy, beige, and always at minimum effort, the world built from said thoughts is not possibly any different. In a world of sad beige minds, there are going to be sad beige houses. The people living in said houses are also not being able to fully add into the artistry of the home, being susceptible to the excess of information and the value of aesthetics. Houses are not becoming homes because that is no longer what our society is reflecting onto them. Are people happy with their houses? Are they truly? Is it a place that says something? The feeling of staring at yet another block of concrete with huge windows is that these houses were not made for living. They were made for selling and showing others the wonders that your money could buy. Is it a killing of personality in favor of luxury, or a neglect of art in favor of a convenience that doesn't actually benefit anyone? Of course, the owners and designers of said houses will always tell you that it is actually too refined for your simple tastes, suddenly sounding like a condescending college student eager to say, "I'm better than you," between the lines. But maybe, and just maybe, if you see something everywhere, every day, every hour, and still think it doesn't look very refined, it might just be boring. Interaction with others is what makes humanity. In every aspect of human existence, the way we tell stories will affect us. And building houses is a prime example of that, because housing is interaction brought to a physical plane. Building homes means gathering a community. In a world where communities are being restrained by a lack of meaningful interactions, is it possible to have narrating houses?
So beautiful, Maria. Yes, a poignant argument, you know. Maria was afraid that there would be some architects in the group, but I believe there aren't. There is an architect at the school, but not in the group. But it's fantastic, Maria. It's very interesting approach, and I totally agree with you. This is from Elizabeth, the student that is in Uruguay today. She's there celebrating uh, her marriage birthday, I think, something like that. But she recorded, and I'm gonna play. So this is Elizabeth Dutra Morrison, My Class Memories.
My class memories. Since the beginning of our class, we have learned and enjoyed several amazing storytellers. Teacher Miranda has introduced us to the renowned writers and challenging themes facing society in different times and cultures. We have explored fields like sociology, philosophy, art, poetry, history, technology, and literature. The first essay was about Robert Oppenheimer's book, Atom and Void, the responsibility of the scientist in the process of changing history. He was one of the scientists in the Manhattan Project, the successful test of the first atomic bomb in World War II, which destroyed two Japanese cities, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Later in life, Oppenheimer made some reflection about the scientists being sure they knew what is best for humanity, which he called the sin of pride. The next one was Miyakoto, in the tale Blind Fisherman. The author used the theme of blindness in a metaphorical way for deep insights in human nature and community. Language is both immanent to the individual and transcendent to society. Then we move on to the African writers allowed us to navigate to Africa. From mystic tribal Africa culture to the brutality of the apartheid regime with segregation and violence. The urban life and the struggle to get an education for the Black people is the theme of Ezekiel Falali's novel, Down 2nd Street and the Coffee Card Girl. He was a writer, educator, and activist that contributed to the independence movement and had an important role in promoting African literature. The South African struggle for independence is expressed strongly in Mafika Pascoal Gwala's political poems. One of my favorites is In Defense of Poetry. What's poetic about shooting defenseless kids in the Soviet street? As long as my country is unpoetic in its doings, it will be poetic to disagree. Two psychological essays, Jealous and Envy, and What is Lie, allowed us profound reflection about human nature. The woman writer that impressed me most is Leila Boella, who came from Sudan to live in the United Kingdom. Her book, The Ostrich, is centered in identity, multicultural relationships, migration, and Islamic spirituality. She points a finger in the contrast of the Eastern and West world. The next subject introduced by the teacher was Kenworth's Unworth's work, The Suspended Stone Circle 2. It was an installation with 100 river stones held in a place by wires tied to the ceiling structure. Also, we have seen other innovative and unconventional art, such as Mihoku Ogahi, Cido Meirelles, and Dave Spriggs. The concept of ethereal, immersive installation and three-dimensional works are present. Their artworks brought up to the students the meaning of art, if it is useless or if it is fundamental for human minds and soul. From art to technology, the book The Come Wave, Technology, Power in the 21st Century's Greatest Dilemma leads us to understand and discuss artificial intelligence, AI, AGI, AC, synthetic biology, and genome project. These subjects have raised questions about the good and the potential challenges of high technology society will be facing. It will permeate all aspects of human life and the planet. Move along, we explore the world of storytellers' essay from several writers. Since childhood, we have been familiar with fairy tales. Still today, parents put children to sleep with the help of a story. We know the power and the healing effects of storytelling present in many cultures throughout the times. They are not mere stories. They are keys to understand and transcending the mythical world with audacity and creativity. The meaning of life and the moral of the story, in truth, are the topics around which all the stories move. In our present times, we are lacking this. Byung-Chul Han, in his book, The Crise of Narrations, defined this time as the post-narrative era. Han suggests that in the contemporary age, the impact of technology, particularly smartphone, has changed our society. He touches up the paradox of our disclosure culture, where people lie about themselves while sharing everything. The high point of this book's profound reflection is that capitalism is turning storytelling into story selling, with narratives and emotions become commodities. In conclusion, the diverse and broad approach of this class provide elements for better understanding of the world, enabling the students to expand their perspective and shift paradigms. I look forward to the next discussions Teacher Miranda comes up with. Thank you.
Thank you, my student. She did a very big recollection from all the classes. So perhaps she's saying that our classes are a way of resisting the crisis of narrative, maybe, you know. Rubens Matos Cruvinel, you're the next one, my boy.
Good morning, my friends, Gus, and everyone that is listening to me. Translate Brightness by José Saramago wasn't an easy thing to do, and I could have been faithful to his right. So as Brazilian and Portuguese speak,
sorry, Ruben, I think I lost the page. Okay, let's start.
No. It's just a part that I'm saying by myself.
Okay, okay. You can you do it again, please?
Oh, okay, yeah, sure. Translate Blindness by José Saramago wasn't an easy thing to do, and I couldn't be faithful to his right. So as Brazilian and Portuguese, I choose to start my work doing it in Portuguese and then going in English. Penso que não cegamos, penso que estamos cegos. Cegos que veem, cegos que vendo, não veem. I don't think we are blinded. I think we are blind. Blind people who can see, blind people that see, but don't do it. In the land of the blind, he who has eye is a king, popular saying. The Narrative Crisis, wrote by Byung-Chul Han, is a contemporary book that talks about the world into the internet and social media. Similarly to that book, we can see the allegory of a society that is not worried about them, that is also perceiving Saramago's amazing work, Blindness. At the same time, the two books work on society that is lost into social bubbles, denying the way that our kind is crossing, the invisibility of other over yourself or your online self, or your online social self. That reality makes human contact that for Yuval Noah Harari in his great book Sapiens is the reason of our species survival, secondary and even worse, sometimes unnecessary. The narrative crisis is building by ourselves when we choose to be immersed in a world that perfection is the only thing that matters over the reality world in which that perfection is a blind effect of illusion. The cry today is not to live or to narrate, but to live or to post. That calls on us the sense of narcissism or a blinding of the society that doesn't see their responsibility over the other's problems or lives. A narrative crisis makes the sense of community being lost in a vast world of ever perfection expectations. In the same way, when we choose to integrate our perfection into the medias, we forgot our own complexity, our own problems and imperfections, even momentarily. This creates on us cries of contemplation, sharing histories and memories. This cries for harm makes the society singular, negatively speaking, because make us look just into our own perspective, futures and problems, and to put it over the other, decreasing and erasing it. The artificialization of the world by diving into social networks make everything and everyone become transparent. Everything becomes visible, but not the social problems make us even more without the sensibility of having responsibility of the others. Once there is a responsibility to have I when others lose it.
That's fantastic, my friend Rubens. Hello, hello, Isadora. Welcome. Thank you, Rubens, for your reflection and bringing Harari and Saramago to your conversation, to your reflection. Was very clever. I think blindness from Saramago captures the same essence from Byung's ideas here. Flávio Batista, can you go, my friend?
Good morning, teacher. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Between like, share, and views. In the class I have, and the list by first time, with various word arts, in that they're connecting with Byung-Chul Han works. The themes like a memory, narrative, identity, in the short of the events shared in social media were present. The end of social media have been destroying our capacity of narrative, between likes, share, and views, changing narratives to storytelling. I'll change it in publicity, not have life, emotion, and identity. If before there was the almost economics, now we transform mirror digital showcase. We are losing control of our narratives. My memory is marked by how easily we forget ourselves. The class showed us that our history of society, the narrative was present. What happens when we can only tell stories on cell phone screens?
That's nice. Flavio is qualifying for his thesis, and so he decided to offer us a very succinct idea. But thank you, Flavio, for sharing. Carlos André, story selling. Go, my friend.
Good morning, teacher. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Story Selling by Byung-Chul Han is a South Korean-born philosopher and culture theorist living in Germany. In this book, the Crise da Narração and primary focus in sul-coreano, a neoliberalism, digital culture, and individuals' place on society. In the chapter Story Selling, If given some parallels drawn between the conception of the marketplaces and Han's ideas on storytelling, particularly in the context of consumerism and digital culture. The consumer culture and commodity in the marketplace, goods and services are exchanged through transactions of driven by consumer demand and supply dynamics. Han critiques contemporary society for its obsession with consumption and commodity, where everything, including experience and emotions, becomes a product to buy, bought, and sold. In the context of storytelling, this could help of the commodities of narrative and storytelling in marketing and advertising. Brands often craft narratives to sell their production on services, tapping into consumers' emotion and desires. In storytelling as storytelling, incompatibility of designing substantially different forms of life. In the world of storytelling, everything is reduced to consuming. In the context of narrative construction and identify, brands and products competing for attention and market share. Similarly, enhanced analysis has a narratives and stories competing for space in the digital realm, where attention is a scarce resource. Hence discussing how a digital technology shape on perception of reality in construction or identifies. In the realm of storytelling, brands use narratives to create and identify and establishing in connection with consumers. Successful storytelling can shape consumers' perceptions of brands, influencing their purchase decisions. This blinds us to other stores, other forms of life, or to other perception and realities. And finally, this information to cinema caused all our sensory organs by to permanently stimulation. There is no contemplative delay that makes narration and attention listening possibly gifts that we have lost. The basis of the gift of listening is moreover self-fulfillingness.
So you need to be attentive, to enter in this contemplative delay. And Charles,
Yeah.
thank you, my friend. A Dora tá aqui? Isadora? No, no Dora. Bia, story selling. Go girl.
Okay. All right.
Yes, you can go girl.
Okay. In Byung-Chul Han's book, Crise of Narrativity, there are different stories regarding social narrative. One of the titles that caught my attention the most was story selling. Apparently, each other's stories are being reported, but in reality, there is no return of the message simply because of instrumentalizing and commercializing a person's memory. Storytelling is the form of story selling, lacks the power that originally distinguishes narratives. The narrative inserts the joints in being, so to speak. In this way, they provide guidance and life support. On the other hand, narratives in the form of product of storytelling shares the many characteristics with information. Like information, it is ephemeral, arbitrary, and consumables. They are not capable of establishing life. Page 66. With these passages in quotation marks, is it possible to understand that same way an inventing that can raise awareness? In other way, it can become commercial. The story, in the authentic sense, create a community, give identity. Story selling, in the other hand, there's a story into a product that can be discarded by another story that is more scandalized than the other.
Yes, Bia. She promised to do a drawing to the class, but
forgot.
the time was short, and Bia. But
And
well, if you
uh,
do it, please tell me, because this I don't know what's going to be done with this, but I'm considering writing a project, writing an article in where I present parts of your texts, for talking about education in an academic in a way, but bringing the rising sun as our example, as as methodology, approach, different things that we do. So I may use Bia your drawing in this
okay.
material for publication. Well, to conclude our seminar, we have Alison, my friend. Go there, man.
The latest published book of the philosopher Byung-Chul Han in 2024 proposes already in its title that we live the crisis of narration. Han astutely recognizes an abnormality in our current condition and directs our attentions towards it. However, his ideas are not entirely novel, since he builds upon and refines concepts introduced by other venerable authors tackling the same issue. The existence of these prior works underscores that the crisis is not a recent phenomenon, while the main arguments presented by Han are rooted in the repercussions of the recent Internet era. Thus, I find myself disagreeing with his primary point, not because it's wrong, but because its perspective misses a final milestone that lay bears the core of the crisis. There are numerous assertions in the book with which I find myself in strong disagreement. However, instead of focusing on criticisms and pinpointing the issues, I recommend reading his book, but with a critical mindset. Despite some equivocations, his failure to fully address the causes paradoxically enhances the book's appeal, igniting lively discussions and debates, a commendable starting point. Here, I will attempt to build upon these breaches in the book, and perhaps in doing so, I can contribute further to the discussion. After all, it is challenging to grasp the overall picture of the things and reach the aforementioned core of the problem when working alone. Despite the increasing number of speeches against science worldwide, science is thriving as never before. While such speeches have always been common among conservative individuals, religious groups, and proponents of conspiracy theories, the rapid pace of technological advancements produced by humankind is reshaping our reality at an unprecedented rate. However, whether it's sheer quantity of information or the environment change, it's faster than we can adapt. Consider this. The internet, once considered a luxury resource, is now recognized as a basic human need. Stable electricity, something your grandparents likely didn't have during their childhood, has become so commonplace that people only think about it when they face a crisis and miss it. Small crises can serve as powerful reminders of the things we often take for granted. While crises themselves are not desirable occurrences, often leaving their marks as scars, they provide an opportunity for reflection. By gaining a deep understanding of the root causes, we can work towards avoiding similar situations in the future and improving our lives. Firstly, it's important to understand that a crisis is often triggered by the deficiency or lack of some sort. For instance, one might think, Just as a lack of water can lead to a drought, an excess can also result into a flood. However, it's crucial to note that the excess becomes problematic and escalates into a crisis because it deprives something else of its necessity. For example, in a flood, we have an abundance of water, but most of it is undrinkable and contaminated. This excess hampers the movements of goods and people, destroys crops, causes plants to rot, damages infrastructure, and triggers landslides. It's a domino effect where the consequence becomes the causes and further consequences. Conversely, we could argue that some of the causes we address are merely the effects of more primary factors. It's important to note that each of the crises, floods or droughts, are distinct and requires different approaches to manage. In today's digital age, narratives are disseminated across the internet like never before. Unlike in the past, when people were exposed to limited perspective through local gossips or selective information for a handful of broadcast channels, the internet has democratized the spread of information. It was once easy to glamorize, embellish, or demonize stories, presenting only the perspective that serves certain interests. However, with the advent of the internet, individuals now have a platform to share different perspectives and voice their opinions, which may reach millions. People are bringing out their experience, presenting alternate realities, and creating entertainment and cultural content that reflects their own identities, rather than conforming to elitist definitions of high and low culture. We are no longer passive consumers of narratives dictated by major media and a few cultural industries. Nonetheless, we should not delude ourselves that we are free of manipulation. Despite the illusion of freedom and the beliefs in our own free will, we remain under the influence of those who hold wealth and power. Even though the voices of the people have grown louder and reached more ears, it's important to remember that, regrettably, many individuals are self-centered, lack critical thinking skills, and are inclined to follow trends and impassioned speeches. In this modern age, where the rate of education is at its highest overall in all human history, the majority of the population continues to propagate prejudice, engage in hate speech, think in absolutes, focus only on short-term future, spread misinformation, and elect unsuitable leaders. This raises the questions: should we listen to all voices? Ignorance is far from bliss. Ideally, we would not ignore anything. However, our mental capacity to process and filter vast amount of information in a short period is limited. As a result, we create bubbles where we outsource the task of filtering to algorithms that curate our feeds, and we consume whatever is presented to us. Social media platforms have made this process addictive, as it aligns with their business model. Yet, it's crucial to recognize that part of the addictive factor is the inherent interest. More than ever, people are mastering the art of storytelling, creating, editing, and sharing stories, sometimes presented as fiction, sometimes as reality. Even with the technology to record events for others to see, we haven't stopped telling stories. We have merely innovated and changed the way we tell them, choosing what to show and what to narrate. Where then does the deficiency lies? What is lacking? What is the nature of this narrative crisis? The deficiency is presently the deficiency is precisely what is absent, the lack itself. Silence has become a rarity. We no longer permit ourselves the luxury of boredom or the freedom of daydream. We deny our brain to the time they need to process, reflect upon, and assimilate information. Just as rest is crucial to physical exercise, it's equally important to mental activity. Yet, we scarcely allow our brain to rest. We deceive ourselves with the notion that spending time on social media and watching videos equates to relaxation and a few minutes of leisure. However, this is far from relaxation. Perhaps if you are in an ergonomically positioned, our body may be at rest, but our brain is still expending significant energy, compelled to focus and paying attention. They, not in Crise da Narration, are compelling because they are interesting, entertaining, humorous, intriguing, or informative. They are sufficiently engaging to elevate our dopamine levels and keep you glued to the screen, craving more. In the first instance, the stories themselves are not the issue. Regardless of the format, whether it's a brief Twitter post, a lengthy blog article, a short TikTok video, or extended YouTube video, the narrative is inherently engaging, complete with a beginning, middle, and end. This is why people are drawn to it. The problem arises when this narrative has no connection to the subsequent content or the next narrative that you will encounter. For example, when scrolling through a feed. The narrative don't interact with each other because they are independent, created from unrelated sources. As a result, there is no need to strain to remember the previous content to understand the current content. After watching a few videos in succession, you might not even recall what you watched just a few minutes ago. This is because our brain is conditioned to discard unrelated information that we encountered throughout the day. Short-term memory plays a crucial role in daily tasks such as remembering to turn off the faucet, switching off in the stove, or recall what you wanted to retrieve from a room. However, once the task is completed, we allow the information to be forgotten, as it no longer serves a purpose. Imagine if you had to remember every single time you flipped a switch to turn a light on or off. Such a mundane, routine, and insignificant act doesn't warrant the effort of remembering it. Another reason we often forget the content we encounter on social media is its perpetual availability for review or rewatching. The need to retell a story is eliminated as we can simply share it. This convenient, however, is leading to a form of temporal atrophy in our brains. The fragmentation of our perception, focus, attention, and time is causing an increasing number of people that identify themselves with symptoms of mental disorders such as ADHD, chronic anxiety, or depression. We are undermining our ability to remember and imagine, which I believe is where the real crisis lies. More than a crisis of narrative, we are, in my opinion, experiencing a crisis of narrative and imagination. Sorry, more than a crisis of narration, we are living a crisis of narrative and imagination. As humans, we gather data and information from external and internal stimuli, but the processing of understanding, the understanding of these stimuli are only possible through abstraction and imagination. To build upon ideas for more complex thoughts and effective communication, we employ narration. Narration is the assembly of information in a sequential and logical structure. It is a tool we use to understand and interact with the world and our other minds. As a tool, it doesn't inherently possess qualities of good or bad. For instance, the same source can provide electricity for comfort or be used destructively as a bomb. A knife can be wielded by a chef or a murderer. Narration is merely the conduit through which ideas travel, and any crisis will inevitably impact it. All narratives are profoundly influenced by the zeitgeist in which they originate. In today's world, people share more of their lives than ever before, yet often only a curated portion, creating a distorted representation of reality. This phenomenon is not new. Even before the advent of social media, Hollywood marketed various fabricated realities that shaped cultural norms, such as the concept of traditional family and its expected behaviors. These manufactured realities extend to social conventions that govern our lives, such as standards, judgments, and dynamics, as, for example, our understanding and concepts of beauty, what has value or not, or where power resides. Presently, our world is deeply entrenched in the mechanism of capitalism, making it challenging to envision a reality beyond its confines. The issue is that this lifestyle is unsuitable in the long run, and we have been overrunning for a long time now. Capitalism, a system that has been in place for an extended period, inherently generates recurrent economic crisis, promotes policies that result in wealth inequality, and at the same time is extremely punitive towards the poor people. A system in which it is not possible to create fortunes ethically and disproportionately penalize the less fortunate. As previously mentioned, consequences generated consequences. The injustice perpetuated by capitalism give rise to cultural and social illness, some of which are even legitimated by those in power through legislation, leading to a spectrum of issues from prejudice to slavery. Absurdly, we escalated the process so much that everything is a product to be sold and generate profit. Nothing is undertaken without the prospect of gain, and the ultimate product is ourselves. This represents a new form of commodification where we sell not just our labor for income, but also our image, attention, data, personal information, preferences, and ideas. All these phenomena operating according to the logic of supply and demand, basically a different kind of prostitution and slavery. Since everything and everyone is viewed as a product, we strive to be the best possible product, hoping to be chosen and perhaps achieve the ultimate dream of capitalism, to become the richest. Here, Paul Frey, when education is not liberating, the oppressed's dream is to be the oppressor. Instead of revolting against the systematic injustice, everyone longs to win some kind of lottery, which is a reverse Venus flytrap of chance that keeps in the edge the possibility to change our lives overnight. A more popular version of the lottery nowadays is by creating viral content to gain fame. This fame could bring us into the spotlight, attract sponsors, and result in substantial financial gain. To promote ourselves and attract others, we enhance our storytelling techniques, aligning them with the standards of marketing and advertisement, a concept Byung-Chul Han sagaciously termed as story selling. We have constructed and reinforced the concept of status, where we narrate stories to show off, rather than fostering community engagement or supporting a cause in the hope to build a better future for everyone. Regardless of whether we use the analogy of a flood or a shipwreck at sea, we find ourselves surrounded by water, yet lacking drinkable water. The water our body produces is also unfit for consumption. In other words, our passivity and indifference only adds to the problem. Without a conscious and active effort, we contribute more to the problem than to the solutions. We are gradually undergoing a rewriting process in our thinking and in the way we express ourselves. As has always been the case throughout history, we are witnessing the resignification of words and symbols, but on a large scale. For instance, we have energy drinks that we know don't provide us with energy, but instead keep us in the state of alertness that prevent us from sleeping. Today, words like stories, reels, feeds, status, cloud, likes, and friends have acquiring new meanings that doesn't exactly reflect their original definitions, with the most extreme example being reality shows. In addition to the changing in the meaning of the words, we are confronted with a strong veiled form of censorship of words. Major content distribution platforms wield the power to demonetize certain contents or simply refrain from recommending or forwarding content containing words they deem inappropriate. To appeal to a broader audience, content is crafted to fit a family-friendly vocabulary, leading people to avoid uttering and contemplating these selected trigger words. Consequently, we are either reducing our vocabulary or creating detours in our speech to sidestep certain topics. This is a subtle process that may not affect those with a critical mindset and keen attention to the subject, but has a significant impact on society at large. It's important to remember that the relationship where there is a flow in which the individual influences the environment and the environment influences the individual. The former is more predominant on a micro scale, while the latter is more influential on a macro scale. Moreover, the emerging generation, which is in the process of forming their worldviews, is growing up with a capitalist mindset where we are all products with words that have hollow meanings and thoughts that are censored. Despite this, returning to the so-called crisis of narration, I believe Han has on the right track when discussing the influence of artificial intelligence, AI. With big data, algorithms can find correlation without the need of explanations or theories, eliminating the need to structure events to extract meaning, formulate stories. Although I believe it is a rather extreme scenario, a more tangible threat lies in the fact that AI could potentially become the ultimate storytellers, removing this tool from the human arsenal. With the advent of machine learning and deep learning language models, such as the generative pre-trained transformed GPT, AI has the potential to structure text in a way that can express ideas and events more effectively than most humans. It's conceivable that in the near future, people may not need to meticulously structure their ideas to create narratives. Instead, they could simply input raw ideas and keywords into a chat-based GPT system and let it transform them into a coherent idea or history. This could bypass the lengthy and challenging process of learning to write well through extensive practice and trial and error. Thus, in this vision of a future where AI plays a significant role in a capitalism world, my concern is not about a crisis in narration itself, but about the impact it will have on humans and societies. It might also be interesting to reverse our thinking, to consider the cause as consequence and the consequence as cause. This mental exercise helps us to understand the intrinsic nature of the problem. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? What is the true root cause? Where does the issue truly lies?
And this is Alison. Wow, Alison, that was a lengthy work, and man, you brought things to a very, very delicate and well drawn idea. Fantastic, man. Thank you. Well, my friends, I think our time is up. I have to join my father on his exhibition today. I would like to thank you so much for your for your works, for you to be here presenting your ideas, sharing your ideas about the crisis of narration. I believe this is a moment to remember. Thank you all for your time and your dedication. And this video will be uploaded to YouTube as soon as the class is over. So I'll send you the link maybe in a few minutes. Thank you again. Have a very good weekend. And now we start the second course about Byung, that is Vita Contemplativa, Chapter 1. I meet you there on the days of the classes. Can somebody take a print from this, please? Obia, can you turn on your video just to be on the picture so we can share on our social media? And do not help the crisis of narration. Who took the print? I will take it one too. Send me in the private. See you, my friends. Bye bye. All the best.